Farhan Lalji is out on the Western Pizza Guest Hotline. Joining us, Farhan from the vehicle, again, from his 92 Cutlass.
Farhan. How did you know?
Could hear the engine rev.
You know, it didn't even have a built-in audio system. I had to bring in the home speaker system just to make it work because the Cutlass didn't have an actual sound system in here.
Yeah, that's well, I'll ship you some 6x9s. I got some sick Alpines that I took out of my Corsica.
Love
back
it.
In the, did you? So today, Riders announced they extended Roland Milligan Jr. through 2026. Yeah. For you, and I always ask you this question, but from your side, was that a surprise? Was that on par? It's kind of a good move, obviously, for everyone in Riderville.
Yeah, no, you get this at this time of year, right? You get a wave of signings at the end of the year for teams that might be under the cap, and they can kind of put some money into last year for this year's players. But right around free agency, you also get teams that want to renegotiate their higher-end players so they can get a better sense of what their cap is going to be both this year and next. So, if you're Roland Milligan, did you restructure so that you could get a bit more in the way of a signing bonus at the front end of that deal so that it helps the team out cap-wise and opens up some things? So it's not unusual for this type of thing to happen at this time of year. Teams are going to all their players, asking them to tweak. If you're an American player, can you restructure a little less money, a little more signing bonus, and other guys certainly get asked to take a pay cut. I'm not saying that's what happened with Milligan, but it's smart of the Riders to lock up a cornerstone piece before they dive into the free agency.
So Farhan, DA here, obviously, everyone's sort of settled on the quarterback situation. So for free agency, nothing moving on there. But who's the one player you think that's available that could make a difference this year?
You talking about a quarterback or just any position, DA?
Sorry, not a quarterback. Sorry, because quarterbacks, everyone's sort of settled at quarterback. But what's that player that you think is going to be the piece that could push someone over the top?
Well, I think Wynton McManus might be a guy. There's a lot of teams talking about him. He had an exceptional season last year with Toronto. And, if he had been healthy the whole year, he might have given Roland Milligan a run for that Defensive Player of the Year award. And, so I think he's the rare American linebacker now that's going to make over $200,000 on whatever his deal looks like. So I think he's going to be one. But, there's a lot of value in a number of spots, right? At receiver, there's a lot of talent there. Player like Dalton Schoen, Geno Lewis, these types of guys. I always view receivers as finishing pieces, even though it's a passing league. But I think a guy like McManus could really make a dent in some teams' lineup.
You mentioned a few other guys. Are there any maybe I was gonna get you to give me your top 5 free agent signings, but maybe if there was like the sneaky ones, the under the radar ones from Farhan Lalji.
Let's see. I think Niles Morgan, Edmonton's linebacker. Like if you want to make a big play for McManus and you don't get him, you might get really good value in a guy like Niles Morgan. And he's not going to come in cheap, but probably isn't going to be over $200,000. I like him as a player. I think as a linebacking core, Edmonton with him and Nick Anderson might have had the best in the league. I think Keon Julian Grant, a receiver, and I know he's Canadian, so it's not necessarily under the radar, but here's a guy that was in the top 5 in receiving the first half of the season. Then he got injured, and then his numbers tailed off a little bit when he came back, but I think there's a big ceiling there. A guy like Keandre Smith, another Canadian receiver that I think can come in and give starters value right away and might not be a home run guy right away. So I think there's a lot of value there. And then I'm curious to see where David Beard lands. Because I think he's probably the best Canadian. He and Sean McEwen, I think, are the 2 best linemen available. But McEwen probably goes a little bit higher on the pecking order. And if you get Beard, I think, again, really good value there for him.
Which is, again, maybe a tough question. Is there a team that you think is going to be the most aggressive here in free agency?
I think Hamilton is going to be aggressive. I think they really have some pressure in that marketplace to get better. I think Ted Govaya is going to want to make a statement early on. The team I'm most interested in is Calgary, because I think they realized at the end of last year they need significant change. They can't continue to do this, or we're not going to pay guys ever in free agency and expect to find value deals and have our scouting department get everything done. I think they understand they need to be more aggressive this year. So whether they make a pitch on a guy like Geno Lewis, whether they try to get one of the defensive linemen that might become available, right? I do think they're absolutely going to be as aggressive as we've ever seen Calgary be in recent years.
So obviously this time of year, like you said, guys are getting signed. We're also seeing some salary cap casualties, maybe. And out in BC as they try to work the new Rourke contract into reality coming here. Any other moves like that you've seen or heard scuttlebutt about around someone trying to manage the cap down?
Yeah, I was told at one point earlier in the offseason that Toronto asked a lot of players to take salary cuts. I know BC has been going through it for sure. You saw Hollins get released, but they had conversations with Keon Hatcher. I don't know that a deal is done there, but there was a little bit of optimism today that they could get a renegotiation done. And, he got paid last year when everyone knew he had the torn Achilles that was going to force him to miss 6 games and then maybe not be as effective when he got back. You look at, they had a conversation with some of their offensive linemen, right? Like the Suk Chungs and Michael Couture's and some of those guys. So I know BC has had to go through it significantly. Toronto, they were probably the quietest team in the month leading up to free agency, right? Like if you look, I think they had, prior to today, they might have had 2 guys re-signed. Yeah, I think the cap casualties have happened by now, right? Like tomorrow, most of those roster bonuses are due, and usually that's when you see them happen. So I think most of the guys, there's even been guys that have been asked to, just release me now so I can get a head start on free agency. But I think most of those hard cuts have been made.
Shifting quickly here to hockey, any nugget out of Vancouver? Are they moving either of those guys in the next weekish here?
Well, I think they're trying, right? Like they legitimately are trying, and there's been a lot of layers to that onion and stuff that I can't even talk about because I just don't want to speculate or put stuff out there that I feel strongly about, maybe hasn't been proven yet. So there's a lot of layers there, and they've clearly been trying to move JT Miller. The market for him is soft. So now they're thinking, okay, do we want to move Pettersson? And quite frankly, I think even if they move Pettersson, they're still going to want to move Miller, but maybe that happens in the offseason. And in the midst of that, they've won 3 straight games, right? Now, competition gets a little better tonight with Dallas, but even they're without Heiskanen, right? So it's been kind of a soft couple of games on their schedule that's kind of making them feel really good about themselves. So I think Jimmy Rutherford, though, he put all of that out on the table, right? Like everyone got their clothes taken off. There's no hiding. This is where we're at. So, they're going to try to be active. There's no doubt about it.
Okay, in closing, 39 years ago, Youngblood was released. Any fond memories of a youngster watching one of the greatest hockey movies ever?
Kelly McGillis, Patrick Swayze, Rob Lowe. It was good. What do I remember? You know what I remember? I remember that he was actually able to become like an entirely different player and person. Like it's like he got strong and he got tough, and he did that in 48 hours between games after he left the team and came back to the next game. I don't know how you do that. Like show me that workout program that in 48 hours, and there was the love scene, and then he had the hockey water bottle on the side of the bed, right? That he drank out of as soon as they finished. So those were 2, and the tea with Miss McGee or whatever her name was.
McGill. McGill.
Tea with Miss McGill, yeah, like I remember that. So not a movie you forget. It's not Slapshot, but it's it's the next run down.
I know. Yeah, no, the going to the farm for 48 hours, becoming an absolute killer was awesome. I think there's a barn that they do that down by Cardiff. You can go do it in southern Saskatchewan.
Just bring over some Western pizza and just take good care of them all. And yeah,
you got it. All right, Farhan, thanks so much again.
Hey, what about Super Bowl? Are we going to talk Super Bowl? I know you're a Chiefs hater.
Saving it for next week. I'm building up my hatred. What are you going?
Yeah, I leave Sunday. I've done like 15 of these, so I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I'm not on your team, you know that. Like I like the Chiefs, and I like the Chiefs. I probably told you this before because I covered 7 of the Patriots' 9 Super Bowls. And so I will always be grateful to Andy Reid for taking me away from Bill Belichick. So I'm not going to like if you got to choose between Andy Reid and Nick Sirianni, how can you pick Nick Sirianni? Like how can you do that?
Well, because I don't want Mahomes and Kelsey to win. And Taylor Swift. That's how I pick.
Okay, well, Taylor Swift I get. But Mahomes is like he's a fantastic player. He doesn't offend people. Like I don't know.
I know.
I'm not a hater.
I would have liked to see him play in real man's football like 10, 15 years ago and see how this Chiefs team would have, whatever. Yeah, let's leave it at that for next week.
Okay.
When you're in New Orleans, you take, and what are you dressing like down there? The weather's been off and on and weird, man.
Yeah, the snow's gone and it's mid to low to mid 20s. So I'm pretty excited. I'm bringing my Speedo.
Short guy. There you go.
Hey, so I'll tell you the story. This is good. So we're in LA for Super Bowl during COVID, or like the year after. So we've traveled down, but we all got a test. So I get there and the next day I test positive for COVID. So I'm literally covering Super Bowl for a week from my hotel room, and we're down, we're right on the water, like literally on the water. So one day, all of our crew, Carol Waglin, James Duthie, everybody is poolside. And some guy goes into the hot tub completely naked. And all of our guys jumped out of the pool as fast as they could. And I was just watching it from the balcony of my hotel. So I'm expecting another warm weather, but I'll keep the Speedo on. I'm not going to, offend anybody.
It's funny. My 11-year-old daughter's listening to this conversation, and she just said, "Taylor Swift's team is winning the Super Bowl, Dad. You can't argue about it." So
my 12-year-old daughter is the same. Like you are not getting any support out of her shank. I'm telling you.
I know.
Fly, Eagles, fly.
Kate, next week from your balcony, watching weird things in pools. Let's do it, Farhan.
No car shot, no rain. Thanks, guys. See you, DA.